think it will come down to how that urgency is positioned. If it's you have to have this now, that's diluted. You know what I mean? But if there's need to solve a problem that a product can help with, that's a reason to keep the conversation going, right? If not in the immediacy.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Derrick Jenkins. Derrick is head of marketing at Owler. And in our conversation today, we talk about optimizing sales interactions in virtual spaces. We dive into whether that is different than optimizing sales interactions in physical spaces. And we explore what sellers should be optimizing sales interactions for. We also dig into the 4 core desired outcomes of every sales interaction, just deepening your connection, deepening your discovery, deepening your understanding, and deepening the value you bring in order to help the buyer make progress toward making their decision. So we get into all of this and much, much more. But before we get to Derrick, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, let's jump into it with Derrick. Derrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Andy. How are you?
Doing well. I'm just a little tired because I flew across country this morning. So yeah. And actually, that wasn't the problem as much as my my wife got the new COVID booster shot yesterday and had a very strong immune reaction to it, which is great. Bad news is she was up shivering all night.
Yeah, I remember getting the booster.
And I was like, okay, I got to get up at 4 to get to the airport anyway. And it's 1 o'clock, 1:30, and you're still shivering. And so, yeah, a little bleary-eyed today. But other than that, fine.
Sounds good. I'll go easy on you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. That's so good. I like that when guests say that. So it takes the pressure off me. All right, so tell us about you and what you do.
Yeah, so tell you about me. Head of marketing for Owler. I lead all of marketing for Owler. I've been with Owler for the last 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm. So
exciting.
For people who don't know what Owler does, explain what Owler does.
Yeah, Owler is a business intelligence product. We track private and company data on over 15 million businesses. Owler Max is our new tool that we launched in April, which is a sales intelligence product designed to help people prospect more efficiently, save time researching companies because we have all that information for you, and it really helps them have better conversations with context. When you sign up to Owler Max, it's a team product. It's a team solution. It's curated. You get to curate business news and firmographic data based off of the needs of your own needs, right? Mm-hmm. As a seller, I was using Owler before I joined the company to look for other companies, as I was saying, some of our marketing materials, like mirror companies that, look like your best
have
customer.
These attributes.
Exactly, mm-hmm. Right? So a great prospecting tool, and that's what we've designed it for sales teams and for sales professionals, really. Yeah,
I mean, I like the approach, which is sort of, higher level. Hey, we're prospecting for accounts, right? Mm-hmm. And here are accounts that we should be going after. And to save yourself the trouble of setting up a bazillion Google alerts or something like that, I mean, Owler will serve you up the information you want on those companies.
Correct. And allow you to set up alerts, what we call instant insights, which are effectively sales triggers. Pre-designed things such as, funding rounds, IPOs, acquisitions, product launches, management changes, awards, and you get all that information in real time sent to you via an email or through one of our many integrations, right? So again, just giving you all this information so you have, a lot of intel and to reach out to customers you already have, find new ones, start building relationships. You hear all these stories about people struggling with prospecting, and I don't know what to say. We're telling you what to talk about. We're giving you information, so the conversation doesn't have to be just about you. It could be about them, be about their customers, their competitors, etc.
Yeah. Well, I mean that I was just laughing because it's why, given all the. I mean, let's just take the nominally free resources, things like LinkedIn and so on, and Google, just at a base, but that let alone something like Owler, which is not very expensive on a per person basis, is there's just no excuse anymore for not showing up prepared. Yet, yeah, I've been several books and research reports in the last couple of years that I've sort of keep pinned to the top of things when I speak in groups and so on is 80% of C-level decision makers find no value in their interactions with salespeople. Another one in a book called Insight-Led Selling, a survey of, again, similar audience was that 77% reported that sellers only show up prepared to talk about their products, not their problems.
Right. Which is, as a seller, if you are a seller, you're doing yourself a massive disservice, right?
Well, what keeps people? I mean, that was sort of the bigger question. You've been in sales for a while, and I've been in it forever, and it's still, for me, sort of one of these enduring mysteries is like, okay, this is not a new tactic, right? Especially over the last 20 years with the rise of LinkedIn and more tools such as yours and other, lead sources. It's like, why would you even dream of picking up the phone and calling somebody without spending a little bit of time to research them?
Can I say I've been guilty of it? I think early in my career,
I'm sure
I definitely was. But I learned pretty quickly that it's not about me, it's about them, And this was before I had access to information. You know what I mean? I would.
Well, what were you selling at the time? How'd you get started?
At that time, it was, advertising sales. I worked in the TV business, you know what I mean? So at the very least, I could guesstimate information about their competitors or ask a colleague for some information. And just, before I even started planting seeds about my business or my solution, try to figure out a little bit about what they're all about. And if I didn't know it, start asking questions about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was what better way to get your buyer talking than to start asking them questions that they can probably answer.
Questions about themselves. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I say. That's why it's still like this enduring mystery to me is, and some of it has to be how we're trained sales.
I think so.
Yes. But I don't know of any sales training package or system or methodology. Certainly, I'm sure there may be some that I'm not aware of, but that sort of say, here's what you want to do is you want to pitch, right? This is, you go into a call, lead off with your elevator pitch. Maybe there are some, but it's like, it seems hard to believe that's what you're doing these days.
I agree. I was taught later on to lead with insights, some type of data point, some type of information that you can ascertain from something. Lead with that more than about who you are.
Yeah.
Think about the emails we get these days. People pitch you still, and you just see it's all about them.
Yeah.
On email.
They get increasingly, LinkedIn inbox and.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I was going to say stunned, but I guess that's probably too strong because at this point, I'm not surprised by anything really, but people in their sequences, and they're automating, sequences on LinkedIn as well is like just how sort of irate they get that you're not responding. It's just like,
listen, I get the spray and pray. I get the spray and pray approach, right? You hope one bites, but one of the things I always enjoyed when I was selling full time was the creativity.
Yes.
Behind some of the emails. I absolutely loved it. You know what I mean? And then you have tools like SalesLoft and Alpha that can track the open rates and say, okay, that worked. Let me try this joke again. You know what I mean? Let me try this layup differently. I found that was to be a bit more interesting and enticing. Not that I was a natural sales writer, but I honed in on my craft because of it, and using, not to plug Aller, tools like Aller did help, you know what I mean? To give me something to link in an email or talk about, reference, to keep my future customer excited.
Well, so it raises an interesting topic because read, I think, a blog on the Aller site. Somebody in your organization probably wrote it, but you're talking about personalization in outreach. And personalization really isn't personal. And we can put in a first name and we can reference a couple things that are unique to that person that we pull out of a record somewhere. But the fact is, we all get the emails every day, and yes, they are personalized, but they're not personal by any stretch of the imagination. And it seems like this, I think it's too early to say it's a trend, but I mean, somebody told me a couple weeks ago about a major company that's tell their sales force, you can't use sequences anymore. You're going to send an email. You got to write that email. You got to make it personal. And
because it works.
It works, but there's a distinction between personalization and being personal. And I think this is something that people have to wrap their heads around, the fact that, maybe it's just, we have the ability to do this personalization. That's my least favorite saying. I keep saying, how many oxymorons can you fit in one sentence, which is mass personalization at scale?
Yeah.
It's like, how wrong is that in so many dimensions? It's not working. I mean, people say, oh, well, sure, some companies, we're growing, we're scaling and so on. But then for me, you always boil it back down to win rates. And you look at win rates and you think, it's not really working. So isn't it time to try something different?
Why would you not? Right? What's that thing? The definition of insanity or lunacy is repeating the same thing, expecting a different outcome, right? Something like that, right? I'm probably paraphrasing that incorrectly. I tend to do that.
No, that's the general sense of it,
right? So definitely try something different. I mean, I'm reading more about email outreach, the stats out there. I don't have the exact number, Andy, of how it needs to be short and sweet, like under 50 words. Doesn't have to be these long, drawn out paragraphs. I mean, I was telling my sales guys and even some other friends of mine who are still in sales is, if you can't read it on your phone, like someone gets your email and they can't see it right, they can't get the gist of what you're trying to say, or, the introduction to who you are on that screen, you may have lost them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if an email that I get sent is not overly important, I'm saving it for later. And it might be when I'm sitting down scrolling through my phone. So it needs to be, digestible on that platform, in my opinion.
No, I agree. But I sort of thinking about, you said you save it for later. It's like, really? But do you? I mean, for me, it's like, if it doesn't capture my attention enough to take action on it right away, rarely do I get back to it.
I mean, save it for later in terms of when I'm working throughout the day, I get emails that are from a colleague or someone that requires an immediate response, what I mean? Or from my boss or something else, right? But something that is, less important, I will save for later.
Yeah.
Take a look at it for sure. But as I was saying, I'm probably going to look at it on my phone then when I have some downtime.
Well, and I've read this in blogs and, LinkedIn stuff and so on is people always want sort of good opening questions or good approaches. And, in the context of, what Owler does is, I mean, there's a line you see all the time is, the seller says, hey, Mr. Prospect, I talk to a lot of people like you, a lot of executives like you, and they say they have these challenges, ABC or whatever. So, are those important to you? And it's like, and I just saw something this morning as I was reading that was almost an exact quote. And I'm like, okay, that's not very personal. I mean, what you want to put in there is say, I talked to a lot of people like you. They have these challenges. Hey, I recently read that, you're experiencing something like this too. Did I see that right in that article about, yada, da, 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 XYZ? Would you be open to hearing about how we've worked with companies similar to yours? Then you've suddenly made it personal, and you just took a little bit of research to be able to do that. And I think then you really stand out.
I agree. I think also some of those emails that get your attention are the ones that create what they call FOMO. You know what I mean? That you're missing out on something, or you may not have known about something. Did you see this happened?
Yeah, well,
how would this affect you? It's like, oh wow, no, I didn't know that. That's thank you. You just gave me something.
But there was something, and I wish I kept it, saying that I don't know if it was in the context of email marketing specifically or marketing in general, was saying that the FOMO approach is losing traction. It's like a tactic that, at least for the time being, has been generally overdone, and people are sort of over it.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure if I fully agree with that.
Well, why not?
Why not? I think because we have so much. I think one of the reasons why we have so much news out there is to keep you informed, right? So you're staying ahead, you're staying on top of trend, and that is a form of not missing out. So I don't think it's ever going to go away. As a trend to attract people, no one wants to be the last to know something. I look at it a little bit differently though. As I look at it from the perspective that even mainstream news views that its primary role is more so, I think, to keep you informed, is to scare you. And and I think that similarly with Facebook and Instagram and many of the other platforms out there, even LinkedIn to a large degree, everybody's hugely successful. Everybody's, it's like, I think people are starting to get over that, right? That they understand that, I think part of the reason you got so much engagement, and perhaps still do in certain sectors on Instagram and Facebook, is that FOMO, right? I want to hear more about what I'm missing out. But then I think, just my personal opinion is people sort of gotten burned out on that to some degree. And I wonder whether that was really what was behind that, because I can't remember the article about the FOMO sort of losing some of its potency, is that people are sort of burned out on it. I'm open to reading that. You send that my way.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Because I sort of feel that. I mean, not that I was huge on any of those social platforms other than LinkedIn, but on LinkedIn, it's like, how many times can you read about somebody that's, I made $1 million this first year of doing this, and it's like,
I don't miss that. No, that's not.
But that's all. For me, that was all FOMO related, right? It's like that was the attraction. Hey, I've done this. You can do this too. And if you're not doing it, everybody else is going to.
So then now we're talking about how you're positioning things. Positioning within FOMO could probably be its own chapters, like big time. There's fear mongering, and there's creating an appetite and some dignified sense of urgency around something.
Yeah, but it's an interesting point though, is because there's a lot of conflicting opinions about, do sellers, not marketers, but do sellers really create a sense of urgency?
Do they, or can they?
Yeah, let's address both of them. Because I think in the balance, no, they don't. And when they can, it's generally due to sort of a false set of incentives for the buyer to take action. False sense of urgency, meaning with incentives.
False sense of urgency.
Discounts, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I get that. Incentivize this, that, to get people into the funnel, so to speak. Yeah, I get that.
It's like once people are engaged, they aren't. This is
I like where you're going. I feel like
it's people, once a buyer's engaged and buyers, past that initial point of contact, they've making decisions to invest their time and attention in exploring a solution with you or with another salesperson. By definition, that's urgency right there. They don't have time to waste. Yeah, I'm just not casually checking something out. I mean, sure, there are exceptions, people do, but in the main, the people we're dealing with, business world, got a limited amount of time, just like sellers.
Yeah.
And this idea that you're coming in and creating the sense of urgency for them, I just think people are deluding themselves when they say that.
I think it will come down to how that urgency is positioned. You know what I mean? If it's you have to have this now, that's diluted. You know what I mean? But if there's need to solve a problem that a product can help with, that's a reason to keep the conversation going, right?
Sure, but
if
don't
not
you think
the immediacy.
But don't you think the buyer has that urgency? That's why they're talking to a salesperson.
I think they can have the urgency,
there's no need to talk to a salesperson.
Or there's also general interest, right? It's not necessarily urgent, but there's interest.
I mean, I think there's
curiosity.
I think there's a lot less of that these days. I mean, you can satisfy a lot of your curiosity just by going to someone's website or looking at, G2 reviews or other user review sites, or, I mean, and certainly all the research saying is, hey, buyers want to do as much of this self-service as possible, which I understand, because when they do engage with sellers, they're actually slowing things down. They're not speeding things up because they can't help them make progress toward making a decision.
That's one way to look at it.
I mean, think about it. How does we talk about this idea of how do we build like stronger relationships with buyers? I mean, how do you optimize a sales touch? It's like, well, from the buyer's perspective, what are they trying to accomplish? When a buyer sets out to make a decision, to make a change at some point in their business, what they're saying is, look, I'm going to put together one or more people in a group. Our job is we're going to try to quickly gather and make sense of the information that we need to make an informed decision with the least investment of our time and attention possible.
Yeah, I'm doing those all the time. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's so when you look at a buyer's job from that perspective is, there's sort of inherent urgency to it, because
right, and at that time,
I'm not going to consume everybody's time and attention if we're not actually serious about making a decision.
Valid point. I guess when you think about it, it's the buyer's kind of really setting a timetable more than anyone, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think this idea that sellers control their buyers. I mean, you can Google that and get hundreds of millions of returns, but I learned pretty early in my career, starting decades ago, it's like, we don't control the buyers.
No.
I mean, you control buyers' behavior. As I said, so these incentives that, they're not stupid. They may choose to take you up on some of them, but don't kid yourself that somehow you affected their sense of urgency.
Fair enough. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, this gets back to the first point we were talking to, is this idea that there's sort of these, in sales, we still operate with these, I'll call them mass delusions about what's really taking place and why. I mean, that we still have people think, my job is to go out and I'm going to pitch.
No pitch.
I'm going to pitch before I understand. I write in my latest book, that's death to the connection right
It's
there.
foolish. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're trying to build trust and credibility with someone, sure, come pitch before you understand what's really the challenges are.
There's a line I always speak about with our team, which is your aim is to be a, trusted advisor, not just another vendor. You want to be a trusted advisor, not just another vendor.
Right. And so, interestingly, in one of those same studies I referred to earlier, it's in this book called Insight-Led Selling, the co-authors surveyed a large number of decision makers and sales leaders. And what's interesting is that I think the number was only 19% of sales leaders believe that their salespeople are trusted advisors. And I was sitting there going, well, isn't that your job to ensure that they are? I mean, if you're not responsible for that, if you're not responsible for, if you consider the product is the buying experience with the seller, that the buyer has, if you're not responsible for creating this positive buying experience, who is?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's one of the reasons why I love the tie-in with marketing and sales too. You know what I mean? I converse with the sales team a lot to find out how they're relaying our product. You know what I mean? It goes back to the whole branding thing comes together. You know what I mean? If that buyer's having a negative experience with you from the sales perspective, it diminishes the brand diminishes everything. You know what I mean? You're not being that trusted advisor. They're walking away thinking this product, this brand. No, it's one thing if it's not a good fit, fine. But if you're railroading me, it's not a great experience at all, right? Before I even buy your product, So that trusted advisor versus being a vendor is crucial. It's important.
Well, yeah. So let's take a step back, and you mentioned this before. Is right now about the buying experience. That's paramount, right? You got to be able to create a positive buying experience as a seller. Yeah, I challenge sales leaders and say, okay, well, when's the last time you talked to your buyers about what their experience has been with your sellers?
I like that.
I mean, when was similarly when you're, I look at and this increasingly so is that buyers have a job to be done to make a decision. Let's quickly gather, make sense of information they need to make an informed decision with the least investment of their time, attention, and resources possible. So they have this job they need to get done. They get people from throughout the organization brought together, sit on the buying committee. It's taken away from the work they should be doing. They basically hire salespeople to help them get that job done. So,
Great.
Does anybody ever ask the buyers what qualities they need in a salesperson?
I mean, like a little temperature check kind of thing.
Not a temperature check. What are the attributes you need from this person to help you get your job done? I mean, if you're hiring somebody to help you do a job, if you're hiring a contractor, you'd want to look at their qualifications, what previous things they had done. You'd want to see a little bit of a track record. Maybe. You don't think our buyers want that as well?
I do. You mentioned G2 reviews when something you said prior, and it made me think about that. Sometimes you see G2 reviews and you see comments about the experience they had with the seller. Every now and then you see that, and I think it's a positive thing to see. Oh, it was a great experience. They walked me through the product, and I love when I see comments like that. That's when it's like, we as in the sales community, we pat ourselves on the back. It's like, job well done, product sold, and they remembered you. They're literally taking time to write about you, and it does come up. It happens.
Well, there's multiple studies that have been done that Challenger talks about it. There's another book that published a couple of years ago called Decision Intelligence Selling that referred to research that found this as well, is that the number one factor buyers factor into decision making. And I think Challenger used 53% of the buyer's decision based upon the buyer's experience with the seller.
Yeah.
So it's really the oftentimes predominant factor that buyers take into account. And it's like, okay, so as sellers, are we getting any feedback at all from the buyer about what we as sellers could be doing differently? Because the thing that when lots of companies do their win-loss analysis, they're really focused on product features, pricing, and so on. And there's research out of this firm in Australia called Trinity Perspectives that's conducted well over 1,000 of these type of interviews. And they summarize their data into findings of 9 reasons why you win, 9 reasons why you lose deals. Of the 9 reasons you win, this is coming from enterprise decision makers, right? Not once is product mentioned in any of the 9 reasons.
What is this called again? Where was this? Can you send me this as well? I like this.
I can send you some slides to summarize it.
Yeah, I like to see that.
It's just slides from the company, but it's like,
yeah.
The reasons. So I labeled those in my book, Sell Without Selling Out. You're selling out or you're selling in. Is the reasons you lose. Out of the 9 reasons, over half were just pure selling out. You as an individual putting your own interest out of the buyers, not connecting with them the way you should, not building the emotional connections. 7 of the 9 reasons why you win big deals are directly from my book is selling in. That's why the guy that runs that company, connected with me after reading my book. It's like, wow, great overlay here, right? So the reason people are making decisions have to do with the sellers and how they're experiencing the sellers. And I think this is becoming increasingly prevalent because in a lot of product categories, products are virtually identical.
I mean, we hear this all the time. We're not new to the world of sales, which is they're buying you, right? We get that.
Oh, for sure. But there's a huge body of people, especially in the SaaS world, that think, no, it's about my process. It's about the process. We got this process down. And it's like, and you're sitting there with your low win rates and you think the process is doing a great job? No.
I mean, let's look at something like customer success, or when after the land and expand, It starts with that first connection, that first relationship. If that wasn't there, you can't grow the business. It's harder to grow the business. I would say not say you can't. I don't believe you can't do anything, but like it's harder to.
Well, I
mean,
think
I'm a big proponent of relationship building at all touch points of the process.
well, and that's the point, right? Is I think that when customer success gets involved, that's a new relationship that's being created. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they can't really build on another person's relationship with another person. I mean, you may get a benefit of doubt because you're associated, but you've got to go through the work and build that relationship yourself.
Correct. But their first touch point with your company is that previous person. So again, you want the whole brand experience to be very, very pleasant before you hand it off to customer success, in my opinion. But Andy's opinion I mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not, well, if it hadn't been, you probably
not get the deal
less
anyway.
likely to have gotten the order, right? So
that's true.
Again, not that it doesn't happen, but it's so important. It's like, every time you're asking the customer to invest some of their time and attention in you, what do they expect to get in return? They expect to get something of value, right? There's got to be a reason for them to invest their time and attention. And this whole idea of the attention economy we hear about, and the guy that coined the term, Herbert Simon, who's one of my intellectual heroes, I guess, came up with this idea. And he published this white paper, I think back in 1971, Herbert Simon, where he really sort of accurately forecasts this information age, right? This is, internet was a gleam in Al Gore's eye at that point. And he said, look, a time's coming where we're going to have so many sources of information contending for he called a slice of our attention, right?
Yeah.
That how do we make a decision where to allocate our slices of attention? And his conclusion was, at least in the business world, it's based on a return on investment, right?
Yeah.
I'm investing that time. Am I going to earn a return on it?
Yeah, 100%. I like to read that too.
Yeah, you can Google that. You can find that online. I mean, Herbert Simon. People don't talk about him enough in this day and age. But I mean,
I'm writing his name down. I don't think I know his name. I don't think I've heard it.
Yeah, Nobel Prize winner. I think he was initially at Carnegie Mellon. I think he might have ended up at Caltech. I can't remember specifically, but
Okay.
But another big thing that he came up with is this idea of satisficers and maximizers. He said, people make decisions. They generally, not always, but generally, will research until they find a solution that satisfies the requirements and suffices to achieve their desired outcomes. And when they do that, they make a decision. And they took those two words together and called it satisficing.
Satisficing.
And the other predominant mode of decision making, even though it's less than, but it can be very situational, is what we call maximizers. People that look at every potential opportunity, every potential alternative, until they find one that they can believe they can make the absolute best choice. And what he and others who have looked at this and found out is that, maximizers actually do oftentimes make the best choice, but at what cost? Right? Because the business is, as Simon found, is that most people want to be satisficers, especially in the business world, right? Hey, we looked at 10 vendors, we narrowed it down to 3. This one's good enough. Now, we could spend another 6 months looking at other vendors, but the marginal gain from that incremental investment of time just isn't there.
Right.
There's nothing to be substantially better.
Right.
So
let's just get on with it.
Let's just get on with it. Now, I experienced this in my career. I was selling really large communication systems. It was like, I didn't really understand until I really, almost after I was done reading, and somebody referred Simon's stuff to me. I read it, and it's like, oh, this is what was happening. This is what was happening. Because I found this, if I could help the customer get to this point of being able to visualize what success looked like sooner. When there are certain milestones I have to achieve to get there. But if I could do that, then I found that, I was winning a lot of deals in a way that oftentimes early on surprised me, because I was like, oh, they're making a decision much faster than I thought they were going to make the decision. But they'd made the decision that was good enough. And happens
to get going. Yeah.
All the time. Now, people can be both satisficers and maximizers. We may be satisficers at work, buying a piece of software. If we're going to have open heart surgery, we might be maximizers, right?
Probably, yes.
We want to get second, third opinions and so on.
Absolutely, right.
But if we're buying a car, satisficers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, pre-pandemic.
That's a needs assessment, too. It's like, how badly do I need this? What's it for? Is it for my company? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like the pre-pandemic, the stat I'd seen is that, people visited on average 1.1 dealerships before they made a decision to buy a new car. So, it's more online buying of cars subsequent to that and so on. But even that trend notwithstanding, it's like, people say, no, this is good enough. I mean, these cars are all basically the same. Kia, Honda, Hyundai, different warranties maybe here and there and so on. But fundamentally, it's all the same. So I like this one. That's good enough. Let's make that decision.
It's funny you bring up car buying, because I had an experience where it came down to the seller. Very poor sales situation, right? I'll tell you to you. If you looked on my LinkedIn, you see that I lived in England for a while. And I moved to the Bay Area. And living in London, I didn't need a car, right?
Right.
Moved to the Bay Area, I needed a car. I had to research the car, the dealership, spoke with someone there, told them when I was coming. Like 3 days after I moved, I need a car. Showed up to the dealership for my appointment in an Uber. I was going to buy a car that day.
Yeah.
The salesperson was horrendous. I left in an Uber. I don't think I could have laid this up for you any better.
Yeah.
I called you from another country. I'm coming in an Uber to buy a car. How could I not leave without a car?
Yeah. Well, that buying experience was horrible, right?
Horrific.
It happens all the time.
I couldn't believe it.
But it's conversely, for me, but I've said this on the show before, is over the last handful of years, the two best buying experiences I've had have been with the same car salesperson with two cars. I mean, it's like just a pro.
Just a pro. Won your trust.
Job. Won the trust. So
the
first car we leased, he did a great job. It's a painful process, even the best of circumstances, as you know. Just all the paperwork, blah 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 blah. So when we were coming in to lease a second car from him, I said, "Here's what I want," and I said, "We have to be in and out of the dealership in 45 minutes or less."
I mean, Andy, that's equivalent to, I came here in an Uber.
Yeah.
I called you from another country. We planned this. What could have, besides an earthquake swallowing us up all in the dealership, what could have gone wrong for me to not walk out of there with a car?
But It
was relationship. It was that.
But it's also making it about themselves, right? And this is...
Yes.
Again, titled my book, Sell Without Selling Out. What is selling out? Well, selling out is when you put your own interests above those of the buyer. And that's what that seller did. Because they undoubtedly thinking, hey, Derrick called me, he wants these things, da-da-da, but I think I've got a better plan for him.
I mean, I literally knew the car I wanted.
I know.
I know. It was there. I was like, let's do this. Okay,
but
wow.
He thought he could be able to upsell you into something else, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, sometimes just help them get what they want.
I mean, I walked away thinking, I wonder if this person's boss was there and had a chat and said, what happened with that guy? He came in an Uber. Why is he leaving in an Uber? What happened here? So that I'm sorry, that's the anecdote back to.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, it pays to listen to the buyer. I mean, one of my favorite stories listening to salespeople is on a train once going from New York to Boston, and some younger guy gets on the train in a suit right before the train takes off from the station and plops himself in the row of seats in front of mine, whips out his phone. It was the last day of the month. I could start hearing his conversation clearly with his boss. And of all the noise, I could hear him say, yeah, but the buyers were just liars. And I'm thinking, oh, man. Yeah, no. Yeah, blame it on the buyer. No, this is on you, guy. You committed to it. What didn't you hear? What didn't you understand? What didn't you know about the buyer and what they were trying to accomplish and when they were trying to accomplish it by? And you just thought it was all about you.
Vendor, trusted advisor. Same reason why you went back to that same car dealership, right? Good experience, good person. We'll go back. Done.
Yeah.
Easily done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe even do the best thing to close the next deal. Maybe refer someone to them.
I have, yeah. Unfortunately, that dealership went out of business. But just like in B2B sales, what's better than a referral? Very little.
Great product, great experience, great team. Yep. We're in. Let's hear it.
Yep. Yeah. What was interesting about this guy is he had been a college professor. He had taught at a undergraduate business program and made the transition to selling cars in order to make more money. It was really interesting. It's quite good. So, well, anyway, Derrick, well, thank you for joining me today. If people want to learn more about Owler or connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can easily go to owler.com. And I'm on LinkedIn.
Spelled like the owl.
Like the owl.
Yes.
OWLER.com. To learn more about Owler, you can check out Owler Max there. But you can also find out more about me on LinkedIn. That's the only platform I'm using.
All right, Derrick, thank you so much.
Yeah, great speaking to you, Andy. I enjoyed this.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I am so grateful for your support of the show. And I want to thank our guest, Derrick Jenkins, for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So thank you for your help with that. And as always, thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.